and how subtlety in art is kind of dead now, and everything in media is very direct, and there's no mystery, there's no audience interaction. It's just very blunt.
Something that's special about subtlety is that it relates directly to you as a person. And it kind of calls your psyche into question and seeing if you can understand and guess it.
And by the way, when the twist happens, no words are spoken at all. Literally, the entire twist is a facial exchange between two characters.
Yeah.
And that's when you know that the plot twist happened, but no words are spoken.
Hey, homebodies!
Welcome back to the Introvert City podcast, where we discuss culture, media, and faith from the perspective of an introvert's complex mind. I'm Carina.
And I'm Seth. What does culture, media, and faith even mean?
Ooh, that's a great question. You want to answer it?
Do you want to answer it?
I think you should go first.
So culture is in, we like talk about, cultural and social,
issues,
and fads,
trends.
issues, social issues, societal trends and stuff like that, fads maybe. And then we kind of bring it back to how it affects the media, how the media gets affected by that culture. And we talk about our faith sometimes too.
Yeah.
A lot too. Most of the time we do.
Okay. Actually, that's very important because sometimes when writing content for this podcast, it's hard to see if it aligns with our mission statement, which is culture, media, and faith from the perspective of an introvert's complex mind. So honestly, that is just an excuse to talk about whatever we want, because anything is culture and anything is media, and not anything is faith, but our faith is an important part of it.
It also gives us an excuse to be awkward.
Yeah.
Guys, it's October.
Yeah.
Woot woot. Everyone pump it up.
Seth,
What
why
are you guys
are
gonna
you
be
being
for,
like this?
What are you guys going to be for Halloween?
Seth and I aren't going to tell you our Halloween costume.
Last year we were Bert and Ernie. We actually
From
did
Sesame
post.
Street.
We did post on the IC Instagram.
Which, if you're not following, you should definitely follow at _introvert_city.
Why aren't you following us?
And if you're here, please subscribe, because we want new friends and we're trying to build this community.
We
It's
want
free.
new friends.
It's free to subscribe. It takes half a second.
It is free to subscribe, and we appreciate our fans.
We really do.
We love the people that follow us and watch our videos.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
So today we have been bouncing this topic idea back and forth for actually a couple of months, because I know you were really passionate about it, and I was like, I don't know if I have much to add. But actually, over the weekend, I watched a movie that relates to this topic today, and we're going to talk about it.
What movie?
And I'm excited. Should I say it?
What movie?
It was Us.
By Jordan Peele?
Yeah.
That's like one of my favorite horror movies. I like it better than Get Out. I really do.
Really?
I really do.
I think it was tied for me. But anyway, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
So today, we're talking about art and depth, and how do I describe this? Subtle messaging, and how subtlety in art is kind of dead now, and everything in media is very direct, and there's no mystery, there's no audience interaction. It's just very blunt, and there's no room for interpretation.
Yeah.
So that's how I would kind of preface this episode.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. I think it is. I think sometimes life and media can be all exposition and no fun times. No character drama, just all plot relevance. Nothing that actually goes away from the central main plot. Everything is kind of like, an example that a lot of people used to use was like the Transformers films. This might be a random one, but I remember when, especially the ones with Mark Wahlberg came out, a lot of the movies, it was like they would show them driving, or they would show them driving down a hill, and he'd be like, "We're driving down a hill." Or like the bad guys would start shooting at them, and they'd be like, "The bad guys are shooting at us." Or like they have this orb that the bad guys want, and we know that, but they're like, "We have to get the orb away that the bad guys want from us."
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yep.
I'm older than the age of 5. Honestly, when I was 5, I probably would have guessed that.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 5 years old, I understood what Spider-Man 2 was about.
Yep.
But I think the reason why I understood was not because they told me outright, "Hey, Spider-Man's life sucked." It's because they showed Spider-Man getting slapped, broken up with, and seeing the woman of his life, get proposed to by another man, and watch his aunt, almost lose her house, and see like his hero become a villain. That's how you realize it. You didn't realize it because the movie said Peter Parker's life sucks, and the moral of the story is that even if your life sucks, you should still do good things. Thanks, movie.
Sometimes when movies now try to be direct and try to let you know what's happening, they just say really awkward, out of place lines when you could have played it subtly with like the actions and with the feel and the vibe of the scene. But they just have to say it and make it awkward.
No, yeah. Yeah. I think, and we can move away from films and go into other art, but I think movies are a form of art, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. A form of moving and constant motion picture art, of course.
Yep.
And one of my favorite movies, Home Bodies, don't tell anybody, that's my guilty pleasure movie, is Warm Bodies. I think that movie is so good. It's like my favorite horror movie. But here's the thing.
Did you say horror movie?
I mean, it's not really a horror movie.
It is
but it's
not a horror movie.
It's a fun movie to watch around the holidays. It's like a dark humor film. Basically, it's about this guy who's a zombie, and he likes this girl, and it's basically Romeo and Juliet for
It's
zombies.
just a chick flick. Just say what it is.
It's just Romeo and Juliet for zombies. But anyway,
Okay.
But anyway, one of the coolest things about the film is that the movie does a really good job of getting you to kind of feel what the characters feel rather than just outright telling you. Like, you see that the two of them, the two main characters, get to liking each other, not because they outright say, wow, you're pretty cool, and I like zombies, and I want to date a zombie. No, you get that feeling when they play that one song by John Waite, that Missing You song, or when he's sitting there and she wakes up and he's staring at her because he's a zombie and he doesn't understand that it's weird, to stare at zombies, or when he goes after her, or when, or there's a scene where, I'll spoil it, this movie's been out for a while, there's a scene where, he tells her that, his something happened to her boyfriend, and because of that, right, he's honest with her about it. But the movie doesn't have her be like, oh, I hate him, I'll never talk to you again. She's just a real person, and he's just a real person, and they're real characters that just are like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. And she's like, it's all right. And then they both part ways in a way that feels like good, in a way that feels real. You're like, oh, this probably is how two people would actually react, rather than like being like, what, you did this in the third act of the film and now we have to split up, It's kind of a big constant trope, but I feel like movies like that do it well because everything coming out of the character's mouth is not just expository vomit.
Yeah, no, that was good. And I feel like the best messages communicated sometimes are communicated by feeling and by the setup, not
Show, don't
by
tell.
actual words spoken. And so over the weekend I watched Us, which is a horror movie by Jordan Peele. And he the way he does his movies are not like, I feel, stereotypically horror of like, jump scare and ghosts and whatever. There's some kind of cultural message behind it. And I'm not going to like spoil the movie, even though it's been out for a while. But there was so much depth to this movie that was just beyond getting your body really scared, that I watched like 3 video essays after the movie, and I understood all of the clues and all of the messaging and all of the messages, or I already said messages, but all of the like concepts that Jordan was trying to portray with the movie. Yeah. And I was just thinking, and then I rewatched it, by the way. So I watched it twice because I watched it with a friend and then I watched it with my family.
It's a great movie.
And I like explained the concepts to my family after watching it because they didn't understand. And they were like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have guessed that until you made that connection. And I just love that movies like that are left up to interpretation, and there's so much space without words being spoken for the viewer to take it as they will and to kind of mess with it in their head, and then to be like, I think this means this. Yeah. It's just, that feeling is so good. And I don't think that exists anymore in modern media.
No, yeah.
Especially if there's like, if someone gets cheated on or something, they're like, oh, you cheated on me. Instead of just like
it's a telenovela.
Instead of having the subtle feel that's like, oh, they're looking at each other and they know what happened and the viewer can understand. And there's none of that anymore.
And the twist in that movie, Us, I won't say what it is, but the twist in that movie ends up being something that is pretty cool.
Oh, and by the way, when the twist happens, no words are spoken at all. Literally, the entire twist is a facial exchange between two characters.
Yeah.
And that's when you know that the plot twist happened, but no words are spoken. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not real.
But it's not the character being like, this is the twist of the movie.
Yeah.
You know? Or being like, wow, I never thought, there's not a single scene in the film where like the characters are like, wow, I never would have guessed that this was this.
Yeah.
You know? You don't need that because you understand.
You just understand by watching it.
Yeah.
Oh man, that movie made me think so much.
Yeah,
But
and sometimes films I feel like films can have a lot of wonder and whimsy. Now we're just talking about movies. I feel like movies can have a lot of whimsy and wonder, you know, and have, which I do like in films. I know not everyone likes those types of moments, but like I think films can have a lot of mystery and like whimsicalness and wonder in certain types of smart lines and smart dialogue.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes in a film is in Signs with Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix. And it's where they're all at the car and they're trying to catch the signal with, I think it's a baby monitor or a walkie-talkie. And, you know, both Joaquin Phoenix and Mel Gibson's character are kind of like not believing the kids that there's like aliens and like an alien sign. But as the scene goes along, you know, you kind of see Joaquin Phoenix's character kind of start to believe more and more and more. And then finally, they're all holding up this walkie-talkie, right? And the kids are like, don't move. Or don't move, you're going to lose it. You're going to lose signal. And then Mel Gibson, he's the dad of the kids, is like, okay, this is why we don't watch too many movies. But then before he moves, Joaquin Phoenix's character says, wait, you're going to disturb the signal. And you just, and then the score picks up, and you immediately are like, oh my gosh, he believes them now. Mm. In fact, in the actual playwright of the film, it says in the notes, he is now one of them, or he's become one of them. It's a really good scene that gives you dialogue, but it gives you smart dialogue as to not make you feel like, I understand what he said, but he didn't have to outright be like, I believe the kids now. There are aliens. Aliens are real, you know? Yeah. He's just like, this is interesting.
I also feel like with Disney movies and with like cartoon movies now, things are very direct because you watch old Disney movies or old cartoon movies and you like pick up on adult jokes that you didn't pick up on when you were little, or you pick up on like feelings that maybe weren't like, there's so many kid movies I watch back and I noticed characters. I'm like, oh, that character was like struggling with depression or something.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have known that as a kid because it's very subtle and it's very implied, right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't happen anymore. And it makes me sad. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, yeah, and I think something that's special about Subtlety is that it relates directly to you as a person, and it kind of calls your psyche into question and seeing if you can understand and guess it.
Yeah.
Not that you're smart or dumb if you don't pick up on themes immediately.
Right,
That's not what it's about. But I think it is more of like you kind of get a sense of how you really feel about a character, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like those scenes when, like, you know, maybe the villain ends up being a good person or does a random good act before they die. Maybe the villain or hero don't need to be like, oh, you were a good person after all. It could simply just be the fact that because of the way a certain filming, you know, technique was done, the hero realizes, oh my gosh, they were really here to help me all along, you know? And that type of stuff is good. It's good because it calls into your emotional side of watching film.
Yep.
You know?
For sure. And I just like the space that Subtlety creates for discussion and dialogue, because I know we have this in common that after we watch a really good thought-provoking movie, we want to talk about it and we want to talk about our different interpretations. But I don't feel like that's super common anymore. It's kind of just common practice to go to the movies and get in and out and maybe talk about it for like 5 minutes afterwards, but then go on with your day. I think it's important to talk about all the media that you're consuming. It's kind of like self-regulation, like what am I consuming and what do I think about it? What are my thoughts on the values presented in this piece of art? So I guess I feel like that's kind of lost as well nowadays.
Yeah. There's a French composer who was Claude Debussy. You might know him. I forget if that's his name or Debussy or whatever his name is, but you probably know Clair de Lune, the song. He did it, and he has a very famous quote that says, music is the space between the notes.
Yep.
And I think that relates to modern art as well, because I think the real drama, right, of a film, right, it's not the part where they scream, And the person's like, you see all those TikToks that are like I've abandoned my child, or I find my daughter. It's not the actual moment that is cinema when they scream. It's the moment after where you're like taken aback. That's the real art right there. What it makes you feel. It's not about what they actually do. It's what they make. It's what makes you feel. How you feel after they say what they say.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So I have something to say. And I was trying to figure out how to transition into it, but it seems like we're at kind of a natural transition, so I'll just bring it up. And it has to do with Christian art.
Okay.
And I hope that this comes across in the right way. But I feel like Christians are made fun of or stereotyped for the way that we sometimes portray art. A lot of us who grew up in church grew up performing special plays that... Okay, so for example, when I was doing theater in middle school, there were like 8 kids. We got our plays from this like special website, this special Christian website that only did Christian plays. And so the play was very like cookie cutter. I actually talked about this play in one of our first episodes in my testimony.
Go watch Carina's story in season 1.
It wasn't great, but it was like, imagine a church kid invites you to see a church play. It's like exactly what you would think of. And I honestly think that type of art can lead people astray and further divide people. I don't think that Christian art always has to have a giant cross in the dead center. Yeah. In fact, I think it has a greater impact if God is more subtle and the message, right, the Christian message behind the piece is like interpreted and do you understand what I'm saying?
We actually talked about this a little bit with Ned and Abner.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about with the episode that we did with them. Because Abner has a lot of pieces actually in his shop that we were talking about that you walk into the store and you have no idea it's a Christian store or shop or studio. But if you start to ask him, what does this symbol mean? What is this person doing this specific motion? What does that mean? You're starting to get the background of the piece and you're starting to get the inspiration of the piece, which is God and God's glory. And I think it's so much more impactful.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with like paintings that people have in their house of, I don't know, Jesus walking on water or something. I think that has its place and it's beautiful. But in terms of like reaching people or having impact or starting conversations, I feel like Christian art can be so much more if we just thought outside the box. I think Jackie Hill Perry said that Christians like have the potential to be the most creative because of what we believe about creation and, everything that ties into our faith. But we feel so boxed in because we feel like we have to just draw crosses or create movies about the atheist who, prays on his deathbed. Like there's so much more than that in art, I feel.
No, yeah. And I just started listening to the Screw Tape Letters on audiobook.
Oh, did you start?
Spotify. Yeah.
It's good, right?
And
the voice
I was trying
is
to
good.
read it. I was trying to read it like a few months ago. I just couldn't I couldn't focus. But I've been reading through it and I noticed something that they mentioned was that they were talking about the church and and when he mentioned the type of church they weren't talking about, he said the expansive, ever growing, ever beautiful church that even we have to admire as like demons. You know?
Yep, I remember that.
And I think it's so interesting to explain that because when you think about the beginnings of Christianity and how the faith started and how we believe God created this world, it is insane. It is truly a marvel to look at, and to think about. It's unquantifiable to the human mind.
You ate.
Okay.
But yeah, that's
unquantifiable to the human mind.
That's my thoughts on subtlety in
thoughts.
Christian art, which is its own whole category.
Good thoughts.
Yeah.
Appreciate the thoughts.
Yeah.
And you know what? Another thing, too, I think that we can relate back to is that there is such a lack of, and in the fact that we lack so much subtlety and we want everything, we want all the details splurged out.
Yeah.
We just have a complete want for things that are so beyond us and things that we don't need to know everything about. Like the fascination with unresolved mysteries or a murder case like you were talking about with Hayden.
Yep.
Right? Like, this whole, right, I won't talk about it long, but the Menendez brother Netflix documentary came out, and
Yeah.
people are like obsessed with it, and it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Or it's like the whole stuff with when the Dahmer series came out. It's kind of, we're glorifying crimes and we're glorifying, unresolved mysteries and things that are really dark. That we shouldn't be like, ooh, I wonder what the next episode of this is going to be like. Oh, it was a real story.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
no, I think it comes from our short attention span. I think it comes from our, like you said, our desire to know every single detail. Me personally, I hate when things are undefined. Like, I talk about this on the radio show that I do with my friends from school. We have a show where we talk about like books and stuff. And I loathe reading books with undefined endings that are just left up to interpretation, which kind of contradicts what I said earlier, but not really, because there's a difference between something being undefined and something being like, there's different interpretations, but at least those interpretations are conclusive, right? There's a difference. And so I love mystery, and I love being able to discuss like any thought-provoking topic that was brought up. But I think we also get frustrated with the idea of undefined things. And so I think because we don't like things that are undefined, or we don't like vagueness, we swing the other way. And now we have to be super direct with everything that we put out.
I like that.
Thanks.
You're so smart.
So I think we're going to wrap
pretty.
up.
So beautiful. Look at
I
how
think
beautiful
that
she
this...
is. You guys have the camera on. Look at how pretty she is.
The camera's probably messed up because I always mess up my camera. Anyway, we're going to wrap up and make this a shorter episode just because this episode is going to be in between bigger guests. And so we wanted to kind of come on to YouTube and just make like a shorter episode that was a little more fun and tossing ideas back and forth. So with that,
will we bring back biddies?
Should we?
For
those loyal listeners, what do you think about bringing back the little series we did like a year ago where we did
doing
little
biddies? We kind of forgot about it.
Yeah,
honestly.
But if you have stuck around this long, I would like to know, for anyone listening or watching, what you think about subtlety in art. If you think it still exists, if you think it's totally dead, what your thoughts are on like thought-provoking art, and if you've had any experiences with that, please let us know in the comments so we can engage in discussion with you.
Yeah.
And subscribe because it's free. And don't forget to stream and download all of our previous episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your shows.
Yeah, and you can follow us at the _introvert city. Wow. The _introvert.
Seth is ready to go.
You can find us at the _introvert city on Instagram. You can also find us on Facebook, TikTok. Please follow us on TikTok. And you can find me at its_DANEY. Wow, I'm tired. You can find me at its_DANEYL.
And you can find me at Carina_B04. And
Have
we'll
a
be back.
good...
Bye, homebodies.
Have a good one, homebodies.